Good evening, everybody. Just a few announcements before we start. Dermot's afraid, because his book is the hottest thing in town right now, that there might be a fire later on. Now, if there is, guys, everyone on this side, the exit is right on this side, down the toilet. It comes out of the side of the soccer pitch. There's actually two exits at the back as well, guys. Again, just follow the signs. There's one exit here, so anyone on this side of the hall should leave this way. And for the VIPs, we're going out that back door over there, okay? So Dermot will be ushered out like the President of the USA, okay? So enjoy the night, guys, and we're in for a good night. Thanks very much.
Garamagad, agus tá fáilte roimh gach duine. My name is Dominic Taylor, Director of the Limerick Writer Centre and the publisher of Dermot's book, The Road That Rises. First of all, I'd just like to thank the musicians there for the introduction. It was great. Round of applause. I think it was the American comedian George Burns who said that the secret of a good speech is to have a good beginning and a good end, and to have the two as close together as possible. And that's what I hope to do here today anyway. I'd like to welcome you all here tonight, and what I can say is an important occasion, the publication of The Road That Rises, a memoir by Dermot Hayes and ably assisted by Breda Shannon. As the publishers of Dermot's book, I just want to set out a little bit about the role of the Limerick Writer Centre and what we have been doing since 2003. Basically, what we have been doing is to try to bring ideas about books, literature and writing to as wide an audience as possible. Our core value has always been that literature is essential. We believe in the love of reading, in the art of writing, and the power of the literary arts to transform individual lives and communities. We work to advance the artistic development of writers, and we try to foster a thriving literary community. The Limerick Writer Centre operates on the principle that everyone, without distinction, from every part of society, has a creative voice, and we work to provide an outlet for that distinctive creative voice. And at times, these voices have something extraordinary and profoundly innovative to say. Every person's creative literary output, whether through poetry, novel, memoir, or song, has a value and profound importance and should be both celebrated and, if possible, memorialized through publication and performance. We aim to put literature, poetry and prose in a community setting by bringing literature to people in a hospitable and sometimes surprising ways, so we can, as Seamus Heaney has said, catch the heart off guard and blow it open. Literature and art is deeply empowering and is for everyone. If you're inexperienced at writing, well, writing is both a craft and an art, and the craft can be developed so that the artist within can emerge. Our community publishing program was established in 2008, and the book we are launching here tonight is the 141st title the Limerick Writer Centre has published since then under that program. As part of our community publishing program, we are importantly dedicated to printing short-run, high-quality produced titles that are accessible to readers. We also actively encourage writers, from the serious career-minded to people who write for pleasure, healing, personal growth, insight, or just to inform. And over the years, we have produced a broad range of writing, including poetry, history, memoir, and general prose. Writers continue to describe and teach us how to see the world differently, and hopefully, from a less self-interested perspective. I am proud that the Limerick Writers' Centre has guided the road that rises from the blood, sweat and tears of the writing process to the joy of publication here tonight. A few years ago, the demise of the printed book was confidently predicted as electronic books rose to prominence. Well, publishers are still publishing paper books, booksellers are still selling paper books, and libraries are still full of printed books. The printing of books may be an old technology, but in my view, it is still cutting edge. Books are still a powerful form of dialogue between individuals and communities. And at the end of the day, as Samuel Beckett rightly stated, words are all we have. So now I'd like to introduce the man himself, Dermot Hayes, who's going to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Comrades, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. And one of my jobs is to thank everybody who has been here tonight. And we have people from Scotland, we have people from Slough, we have Cork, Meath, and many here from Clare, and especially all those of you from the parish of Corofin. Really appreciate you all being here to support the journey of this book that has been launched here tonight. I always welcome now to call Breda.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks again to you all for being here at the launch of Dermot's book. As the ghostwriter and in collaboration with Dermot, my job was to unravel Dermot's life and write his memoir. I took on the job and started working with Dermot some 18 months ago or so. At the beginning, I didn't really see what would be ahead of us and how long and how high the road would rise before we came to the end. But it's been a marvellous journey for me to be involved in writing the story of a man who never took his feet off the road that rises, whatever the tribulations, the setbacks or the knockbacks. So thank you, Dermot, for the journey, and hopefully we have captured the essence of the activist and what drove and inspired Dermot to never give up fighting for rights. A first glimpse of the source of the inspiration is there in the excerpt that James read so well for us of childhood. And I do remember after writing up the Christmas in Kells episode, shall we call it, I thought, oh, what a lovely Christmas I wanted to be. I wanted to be there. It was so warm and just lovely. All aspects of Dermot's life were interesting and inspirational to explore, but childhood is particularly interesting, for it is there we find the markers that set us up for our journey through life. Dermot's story bears testament to a lovely mother and father and hard-working people in hard times. And so many other episodes in this colossal life were a joy to explore, educational and very enlightening for me too. I learned a lot in the journey. Now, I would just like to say a special thank you to a few people who really helped me during the whole journey, as well as Dermot, of course. My friend Brenda Houston for listening to hours and hours of excerpts from Dermot's life and providing endless support and feedback. Mairead Kelly, who lives in France and is watching on Facebook Live, I hope. Mairead, I want to thank you so much for your valuable criticism of the long sentences, etc., etc. And also to my fellow members of the Northwest Clare Writer Circle, Cindy, Josie, Maura, Felicity and Mary, thanks to you all for the support and constructive feedback. Dominic Taylor of the Limerick Writers' Centre, who was a pleasure to work with and always available to answer queries or provide advice. And then, near the end of the project, last October, Gabriella Hanrahan came on board to run a fantastic GoFundMe campaign on behalf of the Friends of Dermot Hayes, which raised funds to publish The Road That Rises. It is also thanks to Gabriella and her creative organisational skills that we are so organised here tonight. It was a pleasure getting to know and work with Gabriella. Joe O'Connell has to be mentioned and thanked for reading the Corofin chapter so thoroughly, pre and post edit, and spotting the out of place things and errors, etc. So anything wrong in the Corofin chapters, talk to Joe. A big thanks also to Michael Nealon, who clarified details and provided additional information for the Roxton chapter, Joe Saunders for the Mullockmore chapters, and Colin Thomas, who looked over the trade union years. And thank you to all of Dermot's family for their contributions of their childhood memoirs. That really helped us. And it was especially a great pleasure for me to get to know Marion, Dermot's wonderful wife, who was so supportive throughout the whole process. And finally, I guess I need to thank my lifelong friend, Susan Murphy, who didn't read a word of it, but told me to get on with the job and finish it and stop whinging. And to my sister-in-law, Marie Hanrahan, for the endless support as well. Now, I will hand you back to James, who will read another excerpt from Dermot's childhood and his father's politics. Thank you all again, and good night.
My father never took a sick day from the county council job, but on election years he took 2 days off to perform his duty at the polling station. From 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. where the recently deceased on both sides were helped to cast their votes by an earthly proxy, and to be by his radio at the count the day after. On the evening of day 3, the neighbours called to the house and debated for hours on transfers and who got them. These were bigger than holy days in our home, all consuming, with my father and his allies poring over the newspapers trying to predict results. Outside the school gate, dressed in his only black suit and his best of 2 shirts, he was an imposing, handsome man. Our father was taller and larger than any of his offspring would become, with Tom Corrie or maybe Christy Burke or another fine Gael stalwart. He collared the voters on their side to remind them who to mark number 1 and who to mark number 2, and to be in no doubt as to who they were betting on. Individual voters would be greatly reminded not to forget who got them the medical card, the grant to bore the well, or replace the rotten windows, or the college money for Michael, or any number of entitlements the minister or the minister in waiting had secured for his constituents. Cards would be sent out to every corner of the electoral district to carry in any living souls with a vote. The other side was doing the same. An even playing field for the 2 big runners, and smaller parties on the margins not getting a chance of the ball. There was ever little fear of a rainbow in those times. Like Kilkenny and Cork, one or the other won the match. My mother sent one of us with the lunch to the polling station, where the rivalry between opposing sides often reared when a particular voter arrived with the graveyard vote, or someone needed to be taunted about the sure loss in sight for their best man. When we were old enough to hold pens and pay attention, our father would have Nolene and me in our kitchen in Kells, glued to the count on the radio all day long, pencil and paper poised in our small hands. He'd listen with intensity and take down every tally. And when he missed something, he'd shout to Nolene and me excitedly, "What was that? What was it? Was it a 1 or was it a 2? We were delighted to please him with the right information, but he drove us demented. He shushed and he hushed our giggles and whispers, and we had to be silent except when called upon. He recorded the votes all the way from the ones to the end across all candidates. The introduction of television into rural Ireland and Brian Farrell all in grey-white on RT, with the tallies behind him big on his screen, delighted me father and made his job much easier. But watching Jack Lynch and his team landslide into victory in front of his eyes in 1977 was a low point for the benefits of television to me father. Ironically, he read the Irish press from cover to cover every day. I wonder about that now. Did Micko give him the press, or did he buy it himself? He went to one Ardèche in his life with fellow Fine Gael supporter and neighbouring farmer, Christy Burke. Tom Corrie, John Hare, Mick Sullivan and Mickey Shannon, 4 more solid Fine Gael supporters and farmers, no doubt joined him there. This was the inner circle of the Corofin Fine Gael coming. It was during Garrett Fitzgerald's reign. Christy drove them to Dublin, and it was the highlight of my father's year. My mother made sure his suit and his shirt and his tie were in perfect order. I did not inherit his tasty dressing habits for formal occasions. Like Billy Connolly, I've never liked suits, and as Billy half joked, only criminals wear suits. People who are going to court to defend their crimes are people who should be. Our house in Kells in the 80s was a revolving door for the Fine Gael North Clare candidates, calling to my father, especially during the election campaigns, where he would tell them what was going on the ground and they devised strategies. Madeleine Taylor-Quinn, the Mulqueens, Frank Henchy and others all came, and I met them when they were visiting. My mother made the tea and they'd sit around the table. The talk was brisk and problems ironed with fervour. Some candidates he had more confidence in them than others, but whoever was chosen, me father backed to the hilt. Me mother didn't take much interest in political matters. She was more influenced by her brother, Matty Keane, who was Fianna Fáil one month and Sinn Féin the next. When he was unhappy with one, he turned to the other. Me father and Matty did not get along personally or politically, but this never affected me mother's relationship with either of them. She loved them both.
Thank you, Patrick. And Patrick will be back shortly to do one more reading. Now it calls on me to call on a very special person, Dermot's sister, Andrea Barry, for her reflection on the book and to contribute to the launch of it here this evening. Is she here?
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Yeah, sorry. A tribute to the author. Dermot, when I hear your name mentioned or listen to you on radio beams, I'm proud. I'm so proud. When I look and see your life up to now and the many hats you wear, you are a son, a husband to dear Marion, a great daddy to your darling daughters Amy and Maurice, a brother, an uncle, a nephew, a cousin, a friend, a neighbour, an advocate, a comrade. I could go on. They are wonderful qualities to possess. Ah, the boy from Kells, Corofin, County Clare. Dermot Michael James Hayes has done it. Has had a book of memories written and published with the help of Breda Shannon, thank you Breda, and published by the kindness of the Limerick Writers' Circle, Dominic. Thank you, Dominic. I went to Dublin many years ago and saw the Book of Kells. I'd never heard of another place called Kells. And now we have our own Book of Kells. my estimation, your book, Dermot, is a great testament to your bravery and courage. To raise your head above the parapet and record your journey. Growing up in a large family are the best of times and the worst of times. But we were blessed with parents who had a moral and work ethic that steered us through childhood into adulthood to become the family we are now. They valued education. Our mother was eager that we should all have a chance to the best teaching on offer at the time. And of course, Corofin National School, Sculmurra, was the very place. But of course, school days were often very painful for many people, and that is a great sadness to this day. Dermot, you were lucky to begin your schooling in the new school. Nearly all my schooling was here in St. Patrick's Hall. I had the last half term in the new school, but for me and my older siblings, this was our seat of learning, and it's fitting that we are all here tonight in St. Patrick's Hall to celebrate your achievements. But our parents could have been high achievers in another time also. Dad could have had a long army career. Mother could have been a matron and managed a hospital. But fate and their love for each other proved that the mission was elsewhere. So Kells, Corofin, was the mission field. I have great love and respect for people who write and record social history. It's a wonderful gift to be able to do, and not all of it's pleasant or comfortable to read. But as the great writers of the past put pen to paper, life has been able to move on, and we are all today still wanting to record our own lives. But local history is amazing. Growing up with pishrogues and legends around, they were incorporated into everyday life, and they still do in mine. When someone has recorded their life experience, that is their life experience, and that is very worthwhile and interesting. But of course, we've been very lucky. Michael McMahon has been a prolific in writing of local history of Corofin Parish, a book which I open a few times a week to check a fact or two. And PJ Curtis, whose memories are carefully recorded, and I cherish as many of his memories are my memories, being a similar vintage. Mum grew up in Kilnaboy, and Granny Keane and the Curtis family were neighbours, and they gathered at the crossroads in Kilnaboy, so much of the detail I was familiar with. But of course my own favourite, Alice Taylor, whose books are a tribute to country life. They are the ones which I am very familiar with. Oh, sorry, I've done that right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there are others, of course, with whom I'm not familiar, have put pen to paper also, and we thank them as well. So Dermot, your contribution to social and local history is recorded for posterity, enabled by Breda and Dominic and the Limerick Writer Circle. Very well done. Dermot, your working life and achievements despite adversity have been eventful. It takes great courage to work, to question work ethics and improve the lives of others. It's a gift, Dermot. Your health issues at times seemed insurmountable, but with your positive outlook, you put your troubles aside, and I have never heard you say, "Why me?" Huge respect, comrade. But your work and support with the disabled people of Clare, Independent Movement Ireland, your Actions Group, your radio work with Radio Beams are just a few of which I am aware. and are to be applauded. Being community-minded and public-spirited is very generous and decent, and you have that in buckets, Dermot. But of course, no family can thrive without the caring help and advice from neighbours, such as the Lahers, the Nealans, the O'Briens, the Cahals from Powell, all wonderful friends, and sadly many RIP now. In the village, the shopkeepers were always so kind and respectful. And of course, we could always rely on the support of the wonderful Hayes and Keane aunts and uncles. So Dermot, thank you for asking me to be part of your journey. It's been a pleasure to be here among family and all your dear friends. And I know John and Annie would have been proud of you, as are your brothers and sisters. Now, I must say a special thanks to my 2 daughters who have enabled John and myself to be able to be here this evening. Thank you very much, Julia and Amy. And to all who made the special journey for Dermot, a very big thank you. Dear friends, I hope you enjoy reading The Road That Rises about a boy from Kells, as all the prophets go to St. Patrick's Hall and the Clare Leader Forum. May I cordially invite you to enjoy your own copy of this life experience of a person who has been a stalwart advocate of rights for those he has seized as marginalised. A noble piece of work, Dermot. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. That was lovely. Now I'd like to call back James Riley for the final excerpt from the book.
Now this final excerpt is from the Roxton Co-op, and there's a link back to childhood as well, yeah? On this beautiful rocky outcrop overlooking Ra Lake, I envisage a Mondragon. While it wasn't Catalonia where the rain fell less and the sun shone more, the landscape was beautiful, and the vision for the future matched my own ideals. I bought my first red beret and started work as education officer in September 1984. I'd read about the Chinese communes set up after the Cultural Revolution. Unlike the Industrial Revolution in the West, which centred industry in cities and bled the labour from the countryside, the Chinese model adopted the commune model to strengthen the rural economy, especially in isolated parts of the provinces. By this means, youth were sustained and retained, participating in creating local wealth and strengthening local culture through the development of their practical, creative and cultural skills. In these multi-generational communities, members shared the rewards, joys and burdens of daily life. While hierarchy was not avoided, administrators and motivators were expected to take their turn in the demands of physical work. A blend of Gandhi's insights on self-care and self-responsibility. By Western standards, the individual rewards for some didn't look fantastic, but in China, it initially eliminated hunger. To me, this sounded like a way to live, especially at a time when rural youth emigration was rampant. If this could work for a country as vast as China, why could it not work in Corofin? By the time I arrived, local men, John Malone and Michael Nealon, headed up the aluminium fabricating facility. Pat Healy had established a stonecraft business, using Moor stone quarried in Liscannor. with machinery purchased by the co-op and transported to Roxton for processing. Pat cut, chiselled and sculpted the moor stone and flagstone into quality outdoor furniture, flooring, house fronting, walling, garden chairs and tables. A small herd of cows was kept on co-op land beside Myra Rue's Lemina Castle, where a garden was also cultivated. The school children rotated milking responsibilities and helped with cheese and yoghurt making, as well as with fuel harvesting and distribution. Music was a big part of life in Roxton. A vast array of tastes and influence were shared and appreciated, and there was always somebody with a guitar or a trumpet or a drum. During those years, we had at least 2 big rock concerts headed by talented Irish stars. On most weekends, the shed was transformed with beer kegs, wood shavings on the floor, straw bales for smooching, and lighting adjusted to make the most of it all, which we did. We were probably an average age of 26 in the late 80s. Beautiful women and half-handsome guys found love on nights like this and wandered off, some stumbling arm in arm down into the Poolnabrocky Valley to Ra Lake under the light of the moon. I nearly had to pinch myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. This new holistic way of living wasn't alien to me. This was how I had grown up, in a family of 15, cooperating under my mother and father's tutelage to keep roof overhead, warm beds and enough food to eat. Our mother organised the crew, and it was her job to chastise the ill-tempered Hayes child. In the house, agitations often escalated into rows, multiple legs and limbs pushing and shoving under our feet, and an orchestra of rowing and bawling assault in our ears in the tiny auditorium of our small kitchen would often drive me mother to distraction. Consequently, even when we weren't working, at her insistence, we spent a lot of time in the fresh air on the stony green outcropping kells, taking no notice of Her Majesty Mullaghmore and our Princess Sister mountains of swirling limestone in the distance behind us. The hullabaloo of jostling for space in a big family took most of her attention. He stole me marbles, she knocked me down, he pulled me hair, she called me names, he kicked me, were among the many furores that broke into mutiny and frustrated our mother. There were jobs to be done, potatoes to be fetched from the potato reek, firewood from the shed, turf from the turf reek, the floor to be brushed, and so on and so forth. Time was imperative in running a big family, and it could only be managed by a thorough organisation in which my mother excelled. In captaining such a large ship, and all the planning and workwomanship that went into keeping it afloat above Tools Lake in hard times. My mother's patience could run aground, and she'd resort to the slap on the hand or the tap of the legs to shunt us back on deck. She was never going to tolerate a ship of fools. Nolene, Lee, Martha, Benny, Eddie and Monica were the siblings I grew up amongst. Meal times revolved around my father's work. He got in at 5:30 and dinner was 6 sharp, and his white griddle cake, freshly baked by my mother, was ready for his supper every day. Our father didn't like to discipline us and concentrated on hard work. When he wasn't at his county council job, he was thatching, building and timbering, or gardening in his local community, where his craftsmanship was respected beyond fault. He aired his grievances with us, all right. Where did you pick up that bad language? You got that in the streets in Corofin. You didn't pick it up at home anyway, he'd accuse in a bluster, but leave my mother to the handle of the brush to sort out the punishment. She could be wicked sometimes, and why wouldn't she? It is Herculean what she achieved, and though the wooden spoon or the handle of the brush came out, she spared the rod. And it is the essence of her kindness and determination that survives in my memory today. It is no wonder I felt immediately at home with Mirren and Michael, Nora and Pat Healy, John Malone, Dave Reardon, Melissa Gaynor, Ollie Malone, Stevie Malone, James Ruan, Margaret Armstrong, Patricia Farrell, Niall Humphreys, Robin Sheen and Emma Keane. I was back in the constellation of a large family, who all wanted to work for the common good and share equally the harvests. In my first initiative as education officer, I showed my new comrades video documentaries on the Mondragon success in the Spanish Basque region, the Rahalin experiment in Newmarket-on-Fergus, and the Wool Co-Operative in Donegal. These programmes led to great discussions. Some obviously knew a lot about these enterprises, but for others, they were inspirational. Mirrors into the future of what we could achieve collectively in this stunning rural setting. It was great fun. I was sharing my education and I was learning from the best. I lived in a rented house with Margaret Armstrong, Dave Reardon and John Malone, a stone's throw from the shed, looking up into the expansive, panoramic, rich, green sloping high hills of Clifton and Carrigraw.
Thank you, Patrick. Or James, sorry, should I say. Sorry about that. Now I'd like to call on James McCormick, or Patrick McCormick, who will officially launch the book.
I'd just like to welcome everyone here tonight and say it's a personal privilege for me to be asked to do this. And one of the qualities of this book, you know, it sails on the complete truth. There's no razzmatazz, there's no big show, it sails on that line. And I got a phone call, well, it was actually my wife's phone call. There was a message left last Christmas, a few months ago, to ring Dermot back. And Dermot said, like, it was the fact that PJ Curtis wasn't available that he was asking me. So I have to live with the fact that I was second choice, but I don't mind being second choice to PJ Curtis. On a serious note, it's a marvellous, I stand in awe of the team, really, Breed. The writing is absolutely beautiful. And I stand in awe of the team behind it. A number of years ago, there was an American journalist around and he wanted to see some of the blessed wells in the Burn. And the Burn are full of, tops of the Burn are full of these turf styles, we call them. It's where our ancestors used to dry the cow pads and use them as firing, and they were doing it actually in some places up to the 1920s and 30s. And as I was telling him the story, he told me just a number of years beforehand he had been outside in Italy. And I was in a small town, he says, south of Delhi, he said, and I could see down at the end of the street there was a woman picking up these cow dungs, and she had it in a big bath and she was mixing it all up, and she had this beautiful pink dress, and it was blowing in the wind with her long dark hair. And I walked down to her and I said, what are you doing? She said, this is going to be my firing to cook the food for my family. This is what I do, she said. And I said, do you not find that, you know, disgusting and hard work? And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, no matter what you do in life, she says, you have to bloom like the lotus above the strife of life. And if there was anyone in our community that bloomed like the lotus above the strifes of life, it is Dermot. And of course, the lotus is a lily that grows in the Ganges River, and it is a beautiful yellow flower. Anyway, on a serious note, in the great wheel of life, how we remember changes. Nothing stays the same. How we remember changes as we change, and that is the reason the story is so important. And in many ways, our stories, our music, our poems are the cornerstones of who we are as a people. And, the richness of a story is so important, and the telling of a story is so important. And I've no doubt about it, like, this book is going to find its own way, and it's going to be read in many places, in many corners of the world. I really believe that. Just on some of the chapters that really inspired me was, like, I love the one on Roxton, as James is after reading, but I think it was the chapter on disability that really, that really shook me, like. And Dermot suggests, like, that, he said, like, that if we could only find, he said, what gifts people with disability may have and pay them appropriately, rather than looking at them as a group of people to support, we'd have a healthier society. And you've only to look at our own history. And you've only to look at our own history and the historical heavyweights of our past, the likes of Michael Davitt, who in the 19th century worked tirelessly for the landless and the deprived, or for an intellectual heavyweight like James Joyce. Both of them had disabilities, and both of them left a legacy rich and wonderful. Like. But I think the fact that Kabir Das, he was a 15th century Hindu mystic, said one time, nothing is true unless you live through it. Unless you live through something, it is not true. And in the world we live in, folks, like, where is the truth going to come from in anything? So to get a rich story that sails on the wings of truth, it is marvellous. And to get it here in our own parish of someone we know and grew up with, it is especially wonderful. I'd just like to say that it is said, that a child's education begins 100 years before it's born. And not alone is this book a celebration of Dermot's life, but it's a celebration of the family that shaped him, his late parents, his siblings, and the neighbours and friends that Dermot speaks so lovingly about. But I'd also like to say, I think, like, that James read about the Roxton Co-op, like, and for those of us who wasn't the outside of it, like, I always felt like it was a place and a community where there was a rich and varied conversation, and also a place where the shackles of any narrowness wasn't tolerated. And when you see what Anna-Marie Flanagan or what Dermot Hayes or what grew out of that community, it is absolutely outstanding, like, I'd just like to finish up by saying, like, and, sometimes when you're asked to do something like this, like, you'd say, what can you finish with, like, and sometimes you have no real say in it. Like, I like to steal a few lines from some old philosopher or some old poet or something like, but the name actually that rolled towards me was Anna Akhmatova, a poet from Odessa in eastern Ukraine. And in the 1930s, she found herself out in a queue outside a prison in Leningrad, where her husband and her son was interned. Her husband had later died there, and she described the situation. She said, everyone whispered here. She was there for 2 years, sometimes at minus 40 degrees. Everyone whispered here, she said. Someone in the line called my name. The woman beside me turned around. Her lips were blue with the cold, and she said to me, can you describe this? And I said, I can. And then she said, something like a smile went fleetingly across what once was her face. And she wrote incredible poems, they're long poems, Requiem and Dedication. But I'll steal 4 lines from Requiem, where she said, no foreign sky protect me, no stranger's wing shielded my face. I stand a witness to the common lot, survivor of that time and place. God bless you, Dermot, and God bless the warrior spirit that you possess. God bless you.
Thank you, Pat. I'd also like to thank now James and our sign language interpreter, Heidi. So give them a round of applause. One final thing, Dermot alluded to it earlier on. When I read through the manuscript, one of the things that struck me the most about it was his love of the people here in Corofin and the place Corofin. And I got inspired myself to write a song in tribute to Dermot. using that theme from the book. Dermot, I showed it to Dermot, and Dermot gave it to his friend, the very talented Marie Griffin, and she's now going to perform that song, and I'm delighted myself. It's a treat for me as well. So is Marie there? She's here. Yeah. Okay. So Marie Griffin, thanks.
Good evening, folks. How are you all doing? It's lovely to be here on such a special occasion. And first of all, I want to congratulate Dermot Hayes on the launch of his memoir, The Road That Rises. Give him a big, big round of applause. And it's a big deal for me to be here this evening, folks, I'll be honest with you, and to be asked to come here and sing this song that was written by Dominic Taylor. So thank you, Dominic, for writing this song, and thank you, Dermot, for asking me to sing it. So I just want to dedicate this song to the memory of my foster parents, Breach and Joe O'Connell. So this is a very special song, so I hope you like it. There's a beautiful place by the burn called Corofin, and that's the place I'll return when my days come to an end. It's such a sweet spot I've never forgot. It's people, the salt of the earth, and around by Tools Lake after my wake lay me down.
Okay, and then finally, little stuff I have to do, like I have to pay tribute to two great people there in my that have been involved with me. My first one is my wife, Marion's birthday today. Marion, will you come forward there? Come forward. One there is, this book couldn't have been done without her, Breda Shannon, and I'd like to thank you most from the bottom of my heart, Breda. Thank you very much. Tea at the back of the room and a scone. Thanks to everybody for coming out. I'm really delighted that you're coming. And anybody who wants the book signed, I will. Oh yeah. Can I have one more thing before I do? Gabriella Hanrahan, please. Once the book signed, I'll be at the bottom here with my table, so. Okay. Thanks very much for coming out and safe journey home. Thank you very much.
Thank you.